Ever been curious about the background of your favorite Naraka hero? Perhaps you haven't been able to finish their cultivation, or want to learn about a hero you don't plan to play. Welcome to the Naraka Legends lore series, where we tell the heroic tales of each character verbatim from the in-game chapters. Join us on today's quest as we delve into the history of
Justina Gu, Winter's Grace.
The exalted eldest princess favored by the emperor, the mysterious owner of the pluvial pavilion, and a hard-hearted swordswoman. Justina Gu is a woman of many faces, and her footsteps can be felt all across the land. When the winter's grace returns, when the cold nights draw to an end, that is when she shall exact revenge on her enemy. You are out of my favor, Shumai. Take care, or I shall throw you out of my retinue and exile you. The little girl, with her fine features and delicate hands, lorded over a sad group of faded and patched dolls. The grit and dust of the stone hovel pressed in around her, and the dirt floor left smudges on her once fine clothes. The girl's mother, Feixue, pushed through the beaded curtain that kept the flies out but didn't help with the stifling heat. She held a basket of meager groceries and a folded letter bearing the wax seal of the sea dragon and anchor. Mother, do you get the pears I wanted? No, Justina, it did not. There are no pears in Lunazra, and we could not afford them if there were. Justina glared with all the haughty she could muster. Mother, this place is beneath us. I cannot live like this! Feixue paid little attention to her daughter-esque complaints, having heard the same ones since they fled the burning husk of the imperial palace. She placed the groceries in the dusty nook that served as their kitchen and eagerly broke the letter's wax seal. But perhaps good news awaits us? Perhaps your father calls us back? Justina, who had similarly been hearing of coming good news and favorable changes in their fortune, rolled her eyes and went back to her dolls. Shumai, you might earn my favor by arranging a great party. A terrified gasp brought her attention back to the older woman. Feixue threw the parchment into their pitiful cooking fire. Justina, collect your things quick as you can. Why? I thought I could play until dinner. Do as I say. This place is no longer safe. We have to go before your uncle's men get here. No! Justina shot up and stomped her little foot. I don't want to move again. This is the third place we've stayed since we got off that stinky boat. Feixue looked at her stubborn, feisty daughter and saw for a moment the empress she could have grown to become, a strong and fierce war queen who would keep the empire safe, and then she knew what she had to do. Maybe she always had known, but hadn't wanted to face what it would do to her beloved child. Justina, put away your toys and come here. The girl pursed her lips and turned away. No! She would not bend, not this time. The last time her mother spoke to her in that tone, she took Justina away from her father and sister, and life in the capital. I won't. You will. A chill breeze blew through the hut. I won't care who comes. They dare not touch me, first daughter of the Icurian crown prince. The air around Feixue shimmered and sparkled. Her breath came out in a fog, like on a winter's day. It occurred to Justina that maybe she should be afraid instead of angry. Oh, Justina, that's why they want you. You're a loose thread that must be trimmed before 8th Prince can become emperor? She held out her hand. I have something for you. Something your grandmother gave me. Grandmother? You never speak about her. And I never will. Feixue's skin turned blue and frosty. I would have spared you this, but we cannot run forever. You must learn to protect yourself. Justina did not know what was going on, but she wasn't scared. Not really. It was like something inside her pulled her toward her mother's weird gift. Mama? She asked in a confused, small voice. I can't force it on you. You must accept this gift willingly. Feixue knelt, holding both hands out to her daughter. Ice and cold will bow to your will, and I will teach you to master it. Eyes wide with awe, Justina slowly walked across the room and into her mother's icy embrace. My beautiful girl, give me your arm. Push up your sleeve so your skin is bare. Justina obeyed, and as her mother took it, Justina noticed a crescent of old scar tissue, like a curved string of pearls on her mother's wrist. Will it hurt? Feixue looked at her child with sorrow and love. It will, but only for a moment. Then, without warning, she lowered her head and bit the girl's tiny wrist. Bit down hard and deep through the skin muscles and tendons. Blood gushed into her mouth. She looked up, chin stained with gore. Blood to blood, Chi flows mother to daughter. Justina didn't scream. The pain was already ebbing away. Her arm was numb from the ice spreading through her veins. Faster! They're almost on us! Two women raced their horses over the acrid salt flat. Behind them, a cloud of dust boiled from under the bandits who chased them. The women were outnumbered 9-2. Will they kill us if they catch us? The younger woman asked. They will try. 1 week earlier, Justina focused on a single snow crystal, several times larger than what nature's makes, suspended in midair. As she concentrated, the crystal formed new branches and grew even larger. Fake Shui was proud of her daughter. In 4 short years, Justina had mastered a fickle power that had taken her mother decades to tame, all the while eluding the assassins the usurper sent to kill them. I think it's the prettiest one yet. Don't you think, Mother? It's very nice. Ever since communications with the pirate fleet stopped, a couple of things had been bothering Fake Shui. That she had no way to learn of her husband, the overthrown crown prince, was one. Until this moment, she was unable to name the other worry. She clapped her hands and Justina's concentration broke. The floating ice crystal sublimated almost instantly into the dry, hot air. What was that for? Justina asked. Well, we will return to the capital. You've heard from Father? He's called us back? Justina was clearly excited. No, there is no news of him or your sister, and that is one reason we should return. So Fake Shui began collecting up her meager belongings, her brushes and pens and calligraphy inks. We can't search for them while hiding in this sandpit of a country. Justina's face lit up. Finally, we're going home. Don't sound so pleased. I haven't heard from Admiral Gui in years. We can't return by sea. We'll have to travel over land. Justina plotted their path in her mind and was shocked. That means going through the salt flats, the lawless wastelands. Round up all the water skins you can find. Fake Shui counseled grimly. Now head towards that rock outcropping. We'll hide behind it. Justina spurred her already exhausted horse for more speed, while Fake Shui kept an eye on their pursuers. Once she lost sight of them, she reeled her horse into the shadow of the rocks and dismounted. She filled a bowl of water for her mount and sat down to rest. Oh, what are you doing? What if they follow us back here? Fake Shui pulled her hood down to block out the glare from the sun. Before we left, I said finding your father and sister was one of the reasons we had to return. There is another. Get back on your horse and we can talk about it at the next waterhole. You have grown so fast, learned so much in so little time. I swell with pride when I watch you practice. You excel in creating such nice, pretty things with your chi. Justina tilted her head for a moment, listening. She whispered, Mother? They were still following us. I can hear them. Fake Shui smiled. Not so long ago, Justina would not have had the skill to focus her hearing over the howling desert wind. You will have to fight soon, and it won't be sparring like what you and I do. It will be savage, brutal, and terrible. It will be to the death. Mama, please, get up! Do you remember swimming? Fake Shui asked. Shocked, Justina stared back. A common way to teach children to swim is to simply throw them in the water and hope they paddle to the surface. The bandits, angry their prey pulled them so far into the desert, hooted and yelled when they spotted the women, but made no demands for them to surrender. Everyone knew there was only one way this encounter would end. I haven't taught you the martial aspects of your power. Not yet. You said it was too dangerous. Yes, which is the point. The bandits unmounted, drew their sharp blades stained with rust and dried blood, and stalked towards the cornered women. So, this is the next phase of training. I just had to find a place far from spies and informants first. Fake Shui leaned back and closed her eyes. Start paddling, beautiful child. Paddle like our lives depend on it. She has a ridiculous name, but she's the first real friend I've had since, well, maybe ever. Mama always told me to keep to myself, that making friends might betray our secret to people aligned with my uncle. But it's been years now since there'd been trouble. Maybe he thinks we were dead? Maybe he has forgotten us? The sound of snapping fingers pulled me from my thoughts. Hello, Justina. What planet are you on? Did you go into a trance? I blinked, refocusing on the young woman sitting across from me. Oh, sorry. I was just thinking about something my mother told me. Ugh, I can imagine. She grimaced in clear disgust. I sipped my tea, spiked with rice wine, of course, and nodded. It was one of the reasons we had become friends. Our mothers. Hers sounded like a major hag who treated her no better than a servant. Mine was tough and demanding, but at least I knew she loved me. Unlike my friends, who names a child Viper? Once a year, the city came ablaze with the Lantern Festival. Upstanding young noblewomen traveled the glowing night streets in groups, surrounded by guards and maids as they watched street performers and ate special festival sweets. Me and V, however, weren't upstanding nobles, at least not anymore. We were drinking and laughing and making fun of any man who dared to interrupt us. I may also have had a few of the festival sweets. There are some tastes from my privileged and oh-so-secret childhood that remain. You know, that's quite a robe, Justina. I don't think I've seen such beautiful embroidery on anyone besides nobility. Your mama's calligraphy shop must be doing pretty well. With all the time she spends at work, Mother should be successful. It drives me insane. Not to mention the endless hours spent on her more important clandestine project of looking for Dad and my sister. At least your mother lets you travel and see the world. V stared into her drink. She didn't like talking about her mom. The places I've seen haven't been all that great, V said grimly. And I wondered, not for the first time, what exactly she did on her family business trips and errands. Well, now you're here and this is the greatest place in the world. The food is amazing. Compared to the scorpions and sand snakes I've had to eat, everything is amazing. There is culture and fashion and civilization. I love it here. It's not too bad. At least the inns are clean, and some of the people are okay. She offered an uncertain smile, like she was testing out a muscle she rarely used. Whoa, Big Bad Viperning saying something nice. What's the world coming to? She laughed and I laughed, and then I caught something out of the corner of my eye. A nondescript man was moving away from our table too casually and too quickly. Mother had trained me to notice such things. And then I saw that the crystal bracelet V had entered the tavern with was gone. Hey, you! Stop right there, I yelled as I stood. V noticed she was missing a bracelet and tried to hush me. Justina, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Nobody steals from my friend and gets away with it. The man ran out the door and without thinking I chased after. He tried to lose me in the festival crowd, but the bright lanterns weren't on his side. I saw him clear as day. We weaved between and around the oblivious revelers, and I could hear V following behind, calling for me to stop. When the man took a sharp turn into a narrow alley, a part of me said, "This might not be a good idea, but I don't listen to that part too often." I dashed in after. It was filthy, clearly where the adjacent restaurants and tea houses dumped their garbage. It was also a dead end. "Ha! Got you!" I shouted in triumph. And then 3 other equally disreputable-looking fellows slithered out of the shadows. The man pulled out a knife and smirked. Who's got who? Young ladies should know better than to follow people down dark alleys. When you're right, you're right. But I wasn't going to let him know that. You're making a big mistake. Just give me the bracelet and I'll let you go. Let us go, lady. Who says we're going to let you go? Controlling my chi was almost second nature now, and since I was out of sight, I could let it fly. I froze the 4 thieves before they even noticed I wasn't cowering in fear. I plucked V's bracelet from the thief's frosty fingers just as... Justina, are you... What the hell? V, wielding a huge sword she'd gotten from somewhere, was at the end of the alley looking in. Got your thing. I nervously smiled, holding it out to her. Weird weather we're having, right? Very strange indeed, she replied slowly. Maybe it was the flickering lanterns or the alley's shadows, but for a moment it seemed like her face held great sadness, mixed with a predator's excitement. She took the bracelet and held my hand for a moment. You know, I've never met your mother. Perhaps I should come around the shop sometime. A big storm descended alongside the veil of night. With the beating rain and rustling leaves as a cover, Justina Gu traveled through the treacherous, winding mountain roads of Bulwark Mountain, holding her breath as she cut past the trees and bushes. Meanwhile, on a muddy road just a distance away, a line of men dressed in plain black clothes dashed into the forest depths in a seeming hurry. Suddenly, reverberations of an explosion of true chi could be felt in the dense forest ahead, followed by the agonizing screams of a woman echoing from the same source. Justina knew there was no time to worry about alerting them, and threw out her grappling hook, speeding toward whence the noise came. In a few bouts, she had reached the edge of the source, where she witnessed the impact of chi colliding against the trees around the area, shattering them instantly. A few deep craters could be seen carved into the ground. A blind woman in red lay motionless against a tree stump by one of the pits. In front of her, a white-haired cultivator in black robes slowly pulled himself up, standing with his side to Justina. Even the dirt on his face or his disheveled hair could not take away the dignified and magnificent aura he possessed. "To think Yushan still harbors such remnants," the old man rasped. The glimmer of hope that Justina held seemed to disappear upon hearing that voice, and a shiver ran down her spine as Fia's hand gripped her throat. Nails digging deep into the tree bark, she barely managed to compose herself. This man with hair white as the feathers of a crane, yet still with a youthful countenance evermore, was unmistakably the mentor of the Icurian emperor, the same one who haunted her nightmares day after day, Nixus. Half a day ago, in the Everest town located just under Bulwark Mountain, this simple inn before her, small with only half a dozen rooms for let, was the best refuge that she could find in this remote town. Taking a seat at a corner table by the entrance, Justina gulped down a cup of hot tea to wash away the fatigue accumulated through several long days of restless journey. Justina Gu had left home, posing as a merchant dealing in antique collectibles while secretly searching for news about her father in the region surrounding the Medita River for over a month. Fortunately, the heavens favored the determined, and thus she finally located her father's old residence hidden away in Bulwark Mountain. In that woodland cabin, she discovered traces left behind by her father several years ago. It wasn't until this very moment that Justina could finally put down the stone that had been weighing down her heart for over a decade. Just as her mother prayed for day and night, her father had not perished in those flames all those years ago. Nay! The whinnies of a horse outside the inn interrupted Justina's thoughts, and she was pulled to full attention when the door swung open. 5 young people, dressed formally, appeared imposing despite being covered in dust from their travels. Most crucially, however, while their weapons were cautiously concealed in their bags or beneath their clothes, the imperial seal carved into the handles of their blades inadvertently revealed their true identity: imperial officials from the capital. Justina Gu speculated inwardly on the identity of the newcomers and their purpose of visit. Just as she was about to inquire, a figure approached her. "It's you?" Justina couldn't help but exclaim as the person turned out to be the blind woman she had recently met at the Lantern Festival. Before a formal greeting could be exchanged, the blind woman leaned in and quickly whispered in Justina's ear, "A storm is brewing. You better return as soon as possible." Then, after a brief nod as a farewell, she swiftly merged into the crowd in the inn. Mulling over the woman's warning, Justina felt ill at ease. She decided to postpone her plans to return and secretly followed the visitors from Centralis instead. Concealed by the trees, Justina Gu could hardly stop trembling. She had anticipated the worst, that the officials had come to investigate her father's whereabouts, yet to her surprise, these people had led her back to that old nightmare. In that nightmare, the familiar scene of the buildings and the courtyard of her childhood home were engulfed by towering flames. On one side of the inferno was a human purgatory where pleas and screams echoed incessantly. On the other, 2 figures sat proudly on their powerful steeds, admiring the view of the disaster that they had unleashed. Their figures illuminated ominously under the raging firelight. Of them, one was exactly this very same white-haired old man with a staff in his hand. Nixus, still standing confident of his victory, had completely overlooked Justina, who was hidden in the treetops. A satisfied smirk adorned his lips as he advanced toward the already defeated blind woman in red. Then, raising the treasured deer antler staff that symbolized longevity and cultivation, he swiftly thrust it toward the center of the woman's forehead. Swish! At the critical moment, a powerful arrow struck the staff, causing Nixus's aim to veer slightly, narrowly missing the woman's temple. The cunning old fox immediately retreated upon realizing that his opponent had reinforcements and assumed a defensive stance. Fortunately, Nixus had suffered internal injuries in a previous battle and was on guard, hesitant to act rashly. Under the cover of the rain and darkness, Justina seized the initiative. 2 sharp arcs of energy shot forth in his direction from the tip of a blade. Nixus was so caught up in defending himself with his staff that he did not expect Justina to descend and snatch away the blind woman who lay against the stump. "After them!" With his furious roar, the dithering officials chased after Justina's retreating shadow. Amidst flashing thunder, Several figures moved swiftly through the dark forest. Under the rain, their pursuers closed in. Carrying the blind woman, Justina gritted her teeth, refusing to let her guard down for even a moment. She knew that her father's secluded cabin where he made a short stay was within reach, offering possible sanctuary to the two of them. Fortunately, they were able to reach the cabin without being caught. After turning the mechanism, Justina dove into the hidden passage behind the door with the woman in her arms. Bang! The stone door shut behind her. As the cabin collapsed with a resounding crash, the entrance was temporarily blocked. Inside the cave, both women still being carried forth by momentum, tumbled to the bottom. A moment later, Justina, still fighting off the dizziness after adapting herself to the darkness of the cave, thought to help the blind woman beside her, but felt a sharp blade pressed against her neck. "You thought I was going to thank you?" The blind woman spoke with cold indifference, like a viper ready to strike. "If I wanted it to happen, your neck would have been slit by now." Justina Gu caught the implications between her words. "You don't know anything!" Clearly, the blind woman did not expect this level of calmness from Justina. She squeezed through her lips. "Why didn't you heed my warning?" Of course she knew. To be exact, Justina knew better than the blind woman who exactly that man Nixus was. The scene from the woods earlier was still vivid in her mind. She remembered being ensnared in her past nightmares. Watching Nixus approach the helpless blind woman lying on the ground with his staff raised, just like that 5-year-old girl from over a decade ago, crying helplessly amidst the sea of flames in the Eastern Palace's inferno. But more than that, Justina remembered just how much her hands were trembling from fear. Yet the shaking stopped when she took the blind woman into her arms. In that instant, it seemed as if Justina had rescued that trembling child from the fiery nightmare of the past. Rescuing that girl haunted by her nightmares in an unfamiliar land. Rescuing herself. Thus she answered, "I know you needed help. That much is enough." The blind woman sighed deeply before withdrawing her blade. "You shouldn't have saved me from that forest. Just the same, you shouldn't have come to the inn to warn me either." Both of them confronted each other in the dark silence. After a while, the blind woman giggled, as if laughing at the stubbornness of the woman before her. Or perhaps at the sudden tenderness that overtook her earlier that day. "Let's go. The storm has passed, and we can't stay in this cave for long. We still have a long journey ahead of us." The water in the cave had already risen to ankle height. Justina Gu extended a hand to the blind woman, who accepted it and pulled herself to her feet. The woman nodded with thanks, introducing herself. "Viperning! And you are?" "I'm Justina Gu, from the Pluvial Pavilion." Become the legend you were destined to be. If you enjoyed this video, please help grow the channel by liking and subscribing. See you on the battlefield, brave warrior.